we have really done a lot of Shravan and Kirtan, so which has really energized us. So with the same energy, I hope I can repeat the words of Srila Prabhupada in this 45-minute lecture. So with some few prayers, I would like to start the class. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are going to be covering chapter number 10, text number 10, which is a very wonderful verse. So we will all repeat the sloka, and then we will read the synonyms, translation, and the purport of Srila Prabhupada. Tesham satata yuktanam. You can unmute yourself and repeat after me, please. Tesham satata yuktanam. Bhajatam priti purvakam. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Yena mam upayanti te. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Synonyms. Tesham, unto them. Satata yuktanam, always engaged. Bhajatam, in rendering devotional service. Priti purvakam, in loving ecstasy. Dadami, I give. Buddhi yogam, real intelligence. Tam, that. Yena, by which. Mam, unto me. Upayanti, come. Te, they. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Purport. In this verse, the word Buddhi Yogam is very significant. We may remember that in the second chapter, the Lord, instructing Arjuna, said that he had spoken to him of many things and that he would instruct him in the way of Buddhi Yoga. Now, Buddhi Yoga is explained. Buddhi Yoga itself is action in Krishna consciousness, that is, the highest intelligence. Buddhi means intelligence and yoga means mystic activities or mystic elevation. When one tries to go back home, back to Godhead, and takes fully to Krishna consciousness in devotional service, his action is called Buddhi Yoga. In other words, Buddhi Yoga is the process by which one gets out of the entanglement of this material world. The ultimate goal of progress in Krishna, the ultimate goal of progress is Krishna. People do not know this. Therefore, the association of devotees and a bona fide spiritual master are important. One should know that the goal is Krishna, and when the goal is assigned, then the path is slowly but progressively traversed and the ultimate goal is achieved. When a person knows the goal of life is addicted to the fruits of activities, he is acting in Karma Yoga. When he knows that the goal is Krishna, but he takes pleasure in mental speculations to understand Krishna, he is acting in Jnana Yoga. And when he knows the goal and seeks Krishna completely in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, he is acting in Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, which is the complete yoga. This complete yoga is the highest perfection stage of life. A person may have a bona fide spiritual master and maybe attached to the spiritual organization. But if he is still not intelligent enough to make progress, then Krishna from within gives him instruction so that he may ultimately come to him without difficulty. The qualification is that a person always engages himself in Krishna consciousness and with love and devotion render all kinds of services. He should perform some sort of work for Krishna, and that work should be with love. If a devotee is not intelligent enough to make progress on the path of self-realization, but is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain to him. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamakyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sakagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitam Shya He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bhandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindurvyaye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Kauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashyatade Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum lankite kirim yakripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat Hari Om Tat Sat Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna to one and all once again. So it's a very beautiful sloka. So before we commence the discussion, I would like to talk about an analogy titled Birds with Wings. So suppose, for example, a bird is sitting on a tree, on a tall tree, which is about, say, 100 or 200 feet above the ground level. The question is whether this bird will be in constant fear that the branch will break. The answer is no. So why would this bird not fear that the branch will break and something will happen to the bird? It is because the bird has wings. So if at all any branch breaks, it has got its wings for it to fly and not to get hurt. So one can understand here that the bird is actually resting on a temporary shelter, right? The branch is the temporary shelter, and the wings of the bird is actually the foremost permanent shelter. So the bird will definitely rely or depend on its permanent shelter rather than its temporary shelter. But suppose, on the other hand, if the bird has underdeveloped wings or undeveloped wings, or if it fails to acknowledge that it has wings, what will happen? It will have to definitely face the consequences of falling from a tall branch. So, similarly, in our lives, we fail to recognize that we have wings. So what happens when we fail to recognize that we have wings? We are in constant anxiety. anxiety of so many things. Today, what is the greatest anxiety? Wi-Fi. If Wi-Fi fails, everything fails. Whether it is at home or whether it's our work environment, anywhere, we get so anxious when the most trivialist thing, such as a Wi-Fi, if it fails. Of course, today I can't call Wi-Fi as trivial because our lives are completely dependent on Wi-Fi. So we are always in constant anxiety. And in this process, we are also completely entangled. When we have the entanglement, we are entangled with a lot of worldly pleasures and worldly treasures. So what happens is we take shelter of this temporary shelter, which is like a bird which fails to understand that it has proper wings. It is resting on the branch. We also take shelter of the temporary shelter. So then what happens? We completely forget that this temporary shelter is temporary. It's not going to be permanent. So if the branch breaks, the bird falls. And if this temporary shelter is not going to be with us always, we may be happy with our bank balances. We may be happy with our age advantage. We may be happy with so many things. But ultimately, this is not going to really help. So, like I'm reminded of an example of a lecture which I heard very recently of His Grace Amarendra Prabhu. So what happens is there's a father who takes his children out to a beach, and the children are actually making nice castles out of the sand, which is close to the shore. And the father is patiently waiting for the child to nicely play. And the child is so happy with the possessions. Says, oh, I have made such a beautiful castle. And if there are 2 or 3 children in the family, each one is competing who has made a bigger castle and what they are going to do about that. But once the father decides that my child, it's time up, we have to get back home, the child has to leave back all these castles that they have built, and they have taken almost probably an hour to build that. So similarly, whatever possessions that we may have, whatever things that we have, material things that we may possess, they are not going to really come with us. It's temporary, and we have to definitely realize this. And Krishna consciousness is all about that, to have this realization. So now, so we know that we have to know that we have wings. Now, the next question is, how do we develop our spiritual wings? So this is an analogy, right? So how do we develop our spiritual wings is actually the most important thing that we'll have to probably contemplate or meditate or understand or think about. So by practicing Bhakti Yoga, our spiritual attraction towards Krishna increases. See, we had a very nice kirtan, 15-20 minutes of wonderful kirtan. So when we constantly hear this beautiful kirtan in a satsang, definitely it elevates our mood, and at the same time also it calms our senses and it helps us to progress in Krishna consciousness. So the first aspect is practicing Bhakti Yoga. Hanuman is a great example of Dasya Rasa. So Hanuman had immense faith and devotion towards Lord Rama, and what he could achieve, he was able to go to Lanka, which was completely a new place to him. Arjuna had immense faith and devotion in Lord Krishna, so he was able to win the Kurukshetra war and also have a great spiritual realization. Prahlad Maharaj, on the other hand, had immense faith and devotion in Lord Vishnu, and he was saved by Lord Narsimhadev. Haridas Thakura had immense faith and devotion in the holy name, and he was beaten up in the 22 marketplaces, and he was saved by the Supreme Lord, and he had a glorious departure, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was with him. So unless there is going to be love, and unless and until there is going to be devotion, it's going to be difficult for us to develop our spiritual wings. So let us take an example of a musician. So musician is very attached to this music. He has strong attachment for music. And as a result of this attachment for music, he tries to perform, whether it is classical or whether it's some instrument or whatever. Because of the attachment, he's able to play or perform perfectly. So love is the basis. So similarly, when we serve Krishna with love and we dedicate our lives towards this process, he gives us the intelligence. So today's theme of today's sloka is intelligence. We're talking about Buddhi Yoga. On the other hand, let us take the example of gopis and the gopas. These gopis and gopas, they did not, they don't have any material education, and they did not have knowledge of Vedanta also. But what they did, they always were constantly in love with Krishna. And this is considered as real intelligence. So we have to probably consider or distinguish between what is real intelligence and what is not the real intelligence. Because sometimes when we accumulate material qualifications, we think that we are intelligent. But the actual real intelligence is actually to be devoted to Krishna, and Bhagavad Gita talks about it quite emphatically. And if one asks, what is the ultimate, if somebody comes to us and says, okay, Prabhuji or Mataji, what is the essence of Bhagavad Gita? It is surrender unto Krishna. Sarvadharman parityacha, mamekam sharanam vraja, aham tvam sarva papebhyo, moksha ikshami, masuchaha. So, tesham satata yuktanam vachatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam ta yenamam upayantite. So before we dwell into the substance of this beautiful sloka, let us try to understand two important aspects. So the first aspect is very important one. Why our mood matters in bhakti, in bhakti practice. See, we all say, this person has mood swings. So what happens if a person has mood swings? What happens when the person is in a good mood? We go and approach him. When he's in a bad mood, we don't approach him. So why our mood matters in bhakti yoga or in bhakti practice? This is the first aspect that we have to understand. The second aspect is how devotional service leads to intelligence. So I would like to cover these two aspects before we dwell into the sloka 10.10. So why our mood matters in our bhakti practice? Okay, suppose there is a person, there is someone whose words and gestures convey that they don't want to talk to us or they don't like us. So how would you reciprocate? You would not like to meet them for a long time, right? You would like to end the conversation as quickly as possible, right? So you can look at from the body language or facial expression. We would definitely know that this person is not really interested to talk to us. So we won't like to prolong the conversation. This conversation will not be prolonged, even if there is something very important to convey to that person, right? So the first aspect is when the person doesn't reciprocate, we also will not like to reciprocate. And even if there's something very important for us to convey, we don't want to convey. So if this can happen to all the jivatmas, the mortals, the lesser mortals here, this happens with Krishna as well. So Krishna also feels the same thing when we don't have that loving reciprocation, when we don't have that loving service for him to reciprocate. So this Gita's Chaturshloki, which is 10.8 to 10.11, the four beautiful slokas, stresses about two things. What are the two things it stresses about? The thematics of these four slokas is about relationship and reciprocation. Today, we talk about relationship. Oh, the relationship is broken because of something which is unpleasant that has happened. So relationship and reciprocation are very critical, both in the material world as well as in the spiritual world. So Sripad Ramanujacharya has mentioned that if somebody wants to understand Bhagavad Gita, if they just focus on the purports of Prabhupada, about the four slokas, 10.8, 10.9, 10.11, and 10.8, 10.9, 10.10, and 10.11, they will get the essence, they will get the nutshell of Bhagavad Gita. So these four slokas talk about relationship and reciprocation. And amongst the 4 slokas, we can further divide these 4 slokas into 2 parts. 10.8 and 10.9 as one compartment, 10.10 and 10.11 as another compartment. So 10.8 and 10.9 talk about what we need to do, right? In the Damodar Leela, we have seen that Mother Yashoda was not able to tie Lord Krishna, and it was always 2 fingers short. So what does these 2 fingers represent? One finger represents our endeavor, our parishrama, the effort that we take. The second finger talks about the blessings and the costless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Similarly, we have to take some effort to go to Krishna. We take 10 steps and Krishna takes 1,000 steps. That is a kind of reciprocation we are talking about. So in these 4 slokas, 10.8 and 10.9 talk about what we need to do for Krishna, and 10.10 and 10.11 talks about what Krishna does for us. So it's a very beautiful and a brilliant combination of slokas. So it makes our life very easy when we actually understand this. So in 10.8, cultivation of knowledge is the theme. Cultivation of knowledge, and once we have this knowledge, we can practice wholehearted devotion. So the principle is, if we have to love somebody deeply, we need to know them deeply and mean to appreciate their greatness deeply. So it's very straightforward. And what is the sloka? Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. So aham sarvasya prabhavo. Krishna says he is the source of all spiritual and material world. Matta sarvam pravartate. Everything emanates from him. First is he is a source, and everything emanates from him. We might think both actually mean the same. But the second part, Mattaha sarvam pravartate, talks about the present condition, which is, we know God. What is the definition of God? God is generator. G stands for generation. O stands for operation. And D stands for destruction. So here, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava talks about Bhagavan Krishna says that he is a source of all spiritual and material world. Mattaha Sarvam Pravartate talks about maintenance. He is a source, and when he is a source, he also continues to maintain it. Iti matva bhajante mam. So the wise, those who know about this aspect, that he is a source and he is the originator and he is a maintainer, they will engage in devotional service very, very nicely. And Buddha Bhava Samanvita. And they actually engage in loving worship of the Supreme Lord within their hearts. So this is a very scientific sloka in my view, that it talks very beautifully as to what we have to do to start with for us to progress in devotional service. So this is 10.8. 10.9 is even more beautiful. So here, these 4 slokas is like, we have gulab jamun, we have rasagulla, we have ice cream, and then we have honey on that. So people who have diabetes, please forgive me for this example, but this is what it is. Each sloka talks about some very, very intricate, context in which we can actually progress in devotional service. So this is 10.8. 10.9. What does 10.9 talk about? It talks about BMW. Here I'm not referring to the BMW, the German car. Here I'm talking about body, mind, and words. I'm reminded because in the last 1 month, we have spoken so much about Damodar Leela. We have heard about so much of Damodar Leela. I can give you the best example is Mother Yashoda. When Mother Yashoda was actually churning the yogurt in order to make butter, she did parishrama. She's the queen of Vraj, but she was sweating. Her body was completely engaged in churning the yogurt for Krishna. Her mind was completely dwelling about the different pastimes that Krishna was up to in Vraj, the various pastimes of Krishna. The words she was singing so sweetly, Govinda Damodara Madhaveti, Govinda Damodara Madhaveti, Govinda Damodara Madhaveti. So when the body when the mind and when the words are completely engaged in Krishna's service, then what happens? Let us see. Machchitta madgata prana bodayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So here, when the mind is completely absorbed in smaranam, so we have 9 processes of devotional service. What are they? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Marchanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, Iti Pumsarpita Vishnu, Bhaktische Navalakshana. So, when the mind is completely absorbed in Smaranam, thinking of the Supreme Lord always, with our life, one is we are theoretically, we know something. Then it's a practical aspect. So it's like we cannot try to learn swimming unless and until we jump into the pool. Right? So first we understand the basics theoretically, and then we get into the pool. So similarly, first is the absorption in Krishna. And once we have the absorption, that should translate into devotional service. So that is the first line. Machchitta madgata prana. Bodayantaha parasparam. Then what happens? The person who's having this kind of a beautiful engagement, he derives so much of satisfaction and bliss by enlightening one another. See, knowledge. See, the Krishna conscious knowledge should always be spread, right? We have to give the knowledge. It's not that I know something, I'll keep it to myself. It doesn't work that way. So this person wants to share the knowledge. He wants to share the pastimes of Krishna with everybody, and he derives so much of pleasure. And this katha, Krishna katha, and he continuously has a conversation about Krishna with everybody. And then Tushyanticha Ramanticha, by which what happens? Krishna says that we can go back to him. So 10:8 and 10:9 talks about what we need to do. How? 10:10, which is the theme of today's discussion, and 10:11 talks about what Krishna does for us. See, always we have seen there is one aspect is the reciprocation. And the other aspect is how we are actually responding to it, right? So in 10:10, this sloka talks about Tesham satati yuktanam vajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te Tesham satata yuktanam. So he says those who are constantly engaged. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti athokchaje Ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasiddhati. In Srimad Bhagavatam talks about our devotional service should be without any motivation and without any interruption. So here I can link that Srimad Bhagavatam sloka to this Bhagavad Gita sloka where Krishna says to those who are constantly engaged. Bhajatam priti purvakam. Serving Krishna with love and devotion. So what happens to that person? Krishna gives an assurance. He says, Dadami buddhi yogantam. He gives the necessary understanding. He gives the necessary intelligence. For what? Yenama upayantite. By which they can come back to Krishna. So, constant engagement, serving with love and affection. And if these two things are done, Krishna gives you the necessary intelligence to come back. And this intelligence, like the bird, we have seen, the wings, the wings that we talk about is the permanent shelter, right? And the branch is a temporary shelter. So the intelligence that we are talking about is Krishna gives a permanent intelligence so that we don't fall back. We are very, very fixated. We are very, very clear that this is the route, this is the path, this is what we exactly want to do in our life. And that keeps Krishna as Paramatma keeps on reminding. See, in our homes, when we grow up, our mothers, they keep on telling, my dear child, have you done your homework? My dear child, did you eat? My dear child, did you brush your teeth? My dear child, did you comb your hair? My dear child. So this engagement is continuously there. And when the child sometimes forgets, here the mother is there to remind. So Krishna is our supreme father. He is a supreme mother. He gives you the intelligence constantly. He gives. If something we are swayed because of the material currents, because of our conditionment, when we sway even for a fraction of a percentage, he says, my dear child, this is not the thing that you are meant for. You are not supposed to be doing this. Then comes 10:11. What is 10:11? That's another very beautiful sloka. Krishna says he will show special mercy by dwelling in our hearts and showing the lamp of knowledge. We say, no, Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We pray to the spiritual master, right? So Krishna becomes our spiritual master here. We have a spiritual master who's with us in this material world. We have the spiritual master who's actually Krishna Mande Jagadguru. Krishna Mande Jagadguru. Krishna is actually showing the lamp of knowledge. And when he shows the lamp of knowledge, the darkness is completely eaten up. So in these 4 slokas, the prime theme is Priti Purvakam, with affection. So what is this affection is? Why affection is so important? Affection is important for us to get reciprocation. If there is no affection, there is going to be no reciprocation. And if there is no affection, our hearts won't be sufficiently open to receive the reciprocation of Krishna. So there are actually three categories of people. I won't call them devotees. It may not be right to call them devotees, but they are performing the so-called devotional service. They are doing so-called devotional service. And who are the 3 categories of people? They are, one, who are performing such a service with a negative emotion. The second category is those who are performing the service with fear, and those who are performing service with guilt. So we are talking about those who are performing devotional service with negative emotion, those who are performing devotional service with fear, and those who are performing devotional service with guilt. So what happens to them? Those who are performing devotional service with a negative emotion, what happens? Their heart is completely closed. Their heart is completely closed. It is like you are inviting somebody for lunch prasadam or dinner prasadam, but you're not opening the doors. The person outside will say, you have invited me, but I would like to come in. But you say, sorry, I'm not able to open the door because there is no emotional engagement. That's the first aspect. Second aspect, those who are motivated by fear. It can be because, okay, God is perceived as somebody who's bad, or he's full of vengeance. If I don't serve him, then I may not get what I want, or I may not get anything. So for such a person, what happens? They may not be able to appreciate love. In the first case, the heart is closed. There is no reciprocation. The second case, because of fear, when we perform service, there's going to be no sense of love. And the third case, when we perform devotional service by guilt, then what happens? We will not be able to appreciate what Krishna has done for us. Whatever we are, we may be in good positions, we may have a good voice, we may have good health, we may have so many good things, but we may not be able to appreciate that this is all Krishna's blessings. So what we have covered so far is the first aspect of why our mood matters in bhakti practice. So our mood should be, we should perform devotion with affection is the answer for this. We should not do anything for the sake of doing. Initially, we may have some difficulty, but when the line of love is corrected between us and Krishna, then our mood automatically, it becomes favorable, and it starts showing affection towards the Supreme Lord. The second aspect, how devotion leads to intelligence. Very important. So because the theme of today is Buddhi Yoga, so we want to understand about devotion. So basically, we always talk about our destiny. So our destiny is actually determined by our decisions, right? And the choices that we make in life. So when we make the right choice, we can be in a good, we can get good destiny. If the choice that we don't have, it can lead to catastrophic situation. Suppose I'm giving you a knife. You can use the knife to cut a vegetable, or you can kill somebody. You can't blame the knife for that. It is entirely up to us. So here, because of the complexity of this material world, we know that it's very bewildering from what we hear every day when we open the newspaper or when we look at the news feeds. It's so bewildering, and it's very we understand that the situation is very complicated. So here we have to understand two things. What are the two things we have to understand? What is the purpose of our life, and what is the path that we can take? So this may sound to be very simple. Actually, it's simple, but it appears to be difficult at the same time. But Bhagavad Gita gives us the wisdom to help us to cut this confusion. So what is the purpose? The supreme purpose is to do devotional service. And what is the path towards doing that? It is the bhakti part. So here this bhakti yoga is actually, it helps us to discriminate between the good and the bad. So here in Shloka 647, so Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham madgater antaratmana shraddhavan bachate yomam same yukto tamomata. So what does Krishna says? Of all the yogis, the one who has greatest faith, he's talking about Shraddha. So we spoke about the aspect of affectionately performing devotional service, doing devotional service with love. But here now there's an introduction about a concept called faith. So Krishna says, among all the yogis, the one who has got great faith is the one who actually abides in him, and he always thinks about him and renders loving devotional service. And he is the most intimately connected with Krishna in yoga, which is the highest of all. So this is Krishna's opinion. Krishna says this. So today, when we talk about yoga, yoga is generally misunderstood as a physical aspect, like yoga asana and different bodily exercises. But yoga actually means connection. Connection to whom? Connection with Krishna. Bhagavad Gita is compartmentalized into three parts. The first 6 chapters talk about the karma yoga, the middle 6 chapters talk about the bhakti yoga, and the last 6 chapters talk about the jnana yoga. So bhakti yoga is actually right in the middle. It's something like a jewel box. We have a lid, we have a base, and what is inside the jewel box is the most precious pearl necklace or diamond necklace or any precious item that is there. So bhakti yoga means through bhakti, we are actually connected with Krishna. And the culmination of all yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. So this is something that we have to consider. So if we consider worship and serving Krishna with affection, with love, with faith, then what happens? Krishna, you attract Krishna's mercy. Suppose it's a rainy day and there are 20 people on the road. 19 of them are carrying black color umbrella. And one person is carrying a colorful umbrella. So we get to notice that person, right? Similarly, Krishna notices that person, that devotee who's actually worshipping and serving him in a very nice way. So when we serve Krishna affectionately, he lovingly reciprocates by giving us the intelligence to choose wisely and unite with him. So these are the two things that we have seen. The first aspect that we have seen is in terms of what our mood should be in practicing bhakti, and how devotion leads us to intelligence. So now, any questions so far? Any questions so far?
And once more, there's one question from here.
Yes, please. Can you read it for me if you don't mind, please?
Yes.
So I enjoyed your presentation, but I have some little confusion.
Yes, please.
So I thought that karma yoga is the best because it is serving Krishna's children, people who are downtrodden, people who are disabled, need help. And then I study chapter 11, 12, and it talks about Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti towards Krishna. That's good. I mean, that's I understand. But now I hear something Buddhi Yoga. So Bhakti and Buddhi is it together, same thing or two different types?
Okay. It's a very nice question, Prabhuji. In fact, I used to have these questions, and I still continue to have, by the way, when I joined ISKCON many years ago. So basically, in Bhagavad Gita 2.39, Krishna, in fact, the word Buddhi Yoga is used in three slokas, in 239, 1010, and 1857. So what happens here is Krishna uses the word Buddhi Yoga from a context of soul and body, and he's talking about the engagement. And this engagement is here refers to as Karma Yoga. He says that we are not this body, we are actually spirit souls. And since we are not body and we are spirit souls, we have to operate in a way, and that helps. So Karma Yoga is basically, we perform. Karma is activity, yoga is connection. So we continue to perform our activity, but we dedicate the results to Krishna. That is what Karma Yoga means, without any expectation of any fruitive results. So you are talking about serving the humanity. Please serve the humanity. Nobody is actually stopping. If you serve the humanity with the mind that you are actually serving Krishna's children, that is pure Karma Yoga. And you're not expecting any results out of that Karma, that particular activity. You are in that platform. But the Karma Yoga platform and Jnana Yoga platforms are good platforms. Eventually, it will culminate to Bhakti Yoga. So you continue to serve the humanity with one pointed view that I am serving the humanity to serve Krishna without any expectation. You are doing pure Karma Yoga because you are dedicating the results to Krishna. What does Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita? Sarva dharman paridyacha mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha ikshami ma suchaha. So ultimately we have to surrender. So this is one way of ultimately going back to Godhead. It is like this. We have it's a 10-storied building. We have steps and we have elevator. We can either choose to take the steps or we can choose the elevator. Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga is like taking the steps. It might take maybe 15-20 minutes more for you to reach the 10th floor. Whereas Bhakti Yoga is the easiest platform where we render devotional service to Krishna. Then what happens? We reach the 10th floor in a matter of few seconds. So this is one aspect. In 1010, Buddhi Yoga refers to Bhakti Yoga because Krishna gives the intelligence, as we have seen in the Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita, how we can perform. The 10.8 and 10.9 talks about what we need to do, and 10.10 and 10.11 talks about what Krishna will do when we do certain things. So it talks about here, Buddhi Yoga is actually referring to Bhakti Yoga. Then in 1857, Krishna uses the word Buddhi Yoga in reference to taking shelter of devotional activities and renouncing all work to him, making him the goal. So that is the aspect of it. So the Buddhi Yoga refers to Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga in different contexts in Bhagavad Gita. So have I answered your question properly, or you have any?
So that's the difference.
Yes.
Still, that's good. That's a good explanation. I'm happy with that.
Thank you. So continue to do whatever we have. See, for example, most of us are working. We have various activities. But when we keep Krishna right in the center, we try to Krishnaize everything. So we don't get the karmic reaction, when we Krishnaize everything. When we do it for our personal sense gratification, the associated karma, it may be good, it may be bad. They come like a package deal, which is not really visible. And that's why we see that there are so many issues. We might say why good things happen to, why bad things happen to good people. See, these are all karmic. Of course, it's a completely different topic to discuss, but this is what it is. So once we Krishnaize everything, that is what Bhagavad Gita talks about. definitely then we can definitely have a better engagement. Because some people will say, I would like to work. Fine. Prabhupada gives a very good example. There's a person owns a very beautiful apple farm. There are a lot of apples that are there. If he says that, Krishna, these apples are for you, that becomes pure karma yoga. Because karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhut ma te sangotsava karmani. Krishna talks about you have the right only to perform your activity. The results are, you are not in control of that. Results are, Krishna will give the results depending on how we are positioned to accept it or not. So this is what we get to know from all the acharyas in various purports, and Prabhupada has explained this very beautifully. Okay, so can I continue? How many more minutes we have?
You can speak for 5 to 10 more minutes.
5 to 10 more minutes. Okay, great. Okay, so I'll quickly wrap up the session. Now only actually whatever we have discussed so far is just the it's just for us to get a background about how to really understand this beautiful sloka. Okay, coming to this purport of Srila Prabhupada. So here the theme, as we have seen, Bhajatam Priti Purvakam is one important aspect that we have to understand, which is loving engagement. And the second aspect is Buddhi Yoga. So these two are the two important things that are included in this particular sloka. So Lord Krishna says, Krishna is actually more interested to receive us in Goloka Vrindavan than we being interested to actually go back to him. So Lord Krishna says that my devotee is my life. My devotee is my life and soul. Because my devotee knows no one but me, I know no one but my devotee. So this is what Krishna says, and he says, I am always subordinate to my devotee. Aham Bhakta Paradino. So Bhagavan says, Aham Bhakta Paradino. So if you see the context of Damodar Leela, so the yogis meditate for many, many years, and only to have the darshan of Lord Krishna's tip of the toenail. Whereas Mother Yashoda, who's a simple cowherd woman, she runs behind Krishna to catch him. So this is completely very bewildering, right? So Kunti Maharani she's also saying, on one side, some of the greatest of yogis are not able to even come near you, whereas a simple cowherd woman like Mother Yashoda, she's great, of course, no doubt about it. She's a great devotee. And she's able to have a very joyful engagement with Krishna. Why? Because the theme is Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. Because the Priti Purvakam, whenever that Priti Purvakam is there, I think that reciprocation of love between the Lord and his devotees is fantastic. And it gets completely captured. And Bhagavan says, Aham Bhakta Paradino. I'm completely controlled by my devotees. So in Damodar Ashtakam, it says, Namami Ishwaram Satchitananda Rupam Rasat Kundalam Gokule Bhrajamanam. So here, Satyavrata Muni talks about Namam Ishwaram. Ishvara is actually, he's a supreme controller. So in one of the lectures, the Acharyas have said the supreme controller is controlled. By whom? By Mother Yashoda. So Krishna is actually, he craves for unadulterated love, which is shown by the devotee. And Krishna is actually subordinate to all the gopis and gopas, and more particularly to Nanda Maharaj. So one example is, you must have seen in some of the beautiful ISKCON pictures, Lord Krishna is actually carrying heavy sandals of Nanda Maharaj on his head. So he says, my dear father, please accept this service. So one great poet, actually, I forgot his name, he says that I don't want any elevation to the heavenly planets, like how Satyavrata Muni says, I don't want any elevation, liberation or impersonal liberation, etc. I don't want any elevation to the heavenly planets. I do not want any amount of wealth. I don't want any position. I don't want mukti. I don't want to go to Vaikunta to worship Narayana. My simple goal life is, I want to simply worship Nanda Maharaj. Wow, Nanda Maharaj? Why Nanda Maharaj? Because Lord, the Supreme Lord, who's absolute truth, who is the cause of all causes, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha, Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. The one who's cause of all causes, the creator, the maintainer, the annihilator, the destroyer, the supreme truth. He is actually serving Nanda Maharaj in the courtyard of Nanda Bhavan. So he says, I would like to serve a devotee. So that's what we say now. We are a servant of the 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 servant. So these aspects come to another topic, which is a topic on its own. We have seen Bachatam, Priti Purvakam. We have seen faith. The other one is humility, which is the missing word in the material words dictionary. The concept of humility is completely missing. Children don't understand how to be humble. Elders don't want to be, they don't want to do, they don't teach how to be humble. They themselves are not humble. So when you perform humble service, that is another way how to actually go back to Godhead. So Krishna says, Bhaktyatva ananyaya shakya aham eva vidorjuna. So my dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood. So since we have only 2-3 minutes left, I'm going a bit fast. So here what happens? Krishna was present. Duryodhana team was here and Yudhishthira's team was here. The Pandavas were here, Kauravas were here. Pandavas they knew that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whereas the Kauravas, they did not know about it. And when you talk about Vidura, I just share a very nice story which is so close to my heart. So Krishna goes as a peace messenger to Hastinapur in order to save the war. He didn't want the war to happen. So he goes there and he has a lot of discussions with Duryodhana, but eventually the discussions failed. And then as Krishna was just moving out, Duryodhana said, Krishna, please help yourself. There is Chapan Boga. There is a lot of food that is there in golden plates. You can have sweets, you can have savories, you can have samosas, kachoris, laddu, gulab jamun, rice, this, that, blah, blah, blah. You have everything. Go. Actually, Krishna was hungry. But Krishna did not have because he didn't find any love. So what he did, immediately he went to Vidura's house. He goes to Vidura's house. He knocks at the door. He says, then Vidurani was there. Vidura was not there. So Vidurani opens the door. She is bewildered completely because of ecstasy. She sees Krishna. Oh, my dear Krishna, you are here. Krishna immediately says, Vidurani, I am very, very hungry. Krishna's Atmarama. He's self-satisfied. But he throws away this aspect because he wants to have engagement with this pure devotee. So he takes the opportunity to go to the pure devotee's house. And Vidurani says, Krishna, there's only banana that said, come, bring something. So Bhagavan says in 9:26, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayashyati Tataham Bhakti Upahartam Ashnami Prayatatmanaha. So give me a little fruit, give me a little water, give me a little flower, give me a little fruit. Patram is leaf. So if you give me with love, I shall accept it. Again, the concept of love comes here. So what happens? Vidurani, she's in complete ecstasy. She's not in her external senses. So what she does, she takes a banana, she opens the banana, throws the banana, gives the banana peel. Krishna has it. So like that, the complete engagement, all the bananas were thrown down and she was only giving the banana skin and Krishna was happily consuming. Vidura then enters. He says, oh, Vidurani, you have done a big aparad. So Krishna says, be quiet. This devotee is showing so much of love. She doesn't even know, out of ecstasy, she's actually serving me. So for me, even if you give me all the bananas of this universe, it's not going to satisfy me. But what really satisfies me is pure devotional service. So this is what Krishna says, Bhaktyatva ananyaya shakya ahameva vidorjuna. So unless we are purified, so what should we do? We said, no, how to develop our spiritual wings. One is we have to come out of our material desires. Of course, we have many desires. We want to, we cannot say that we can wipe out our desires, but I try to channelize it with Krishna. Try to Krishnaize the desires, and as far as possible, try to minimize your material desires. And Krishna, when constant engagement, he will definitely give the intelligence for us to actually go back to him. And then coming to the aspect of serving the spiritual master. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nagari kudopi dhyayam subam tasya sasti sangyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam. So again, when we suppose we say, oh, I don't know how to perform bhakti, I don't know, I find it very difficult. So then we approach our spiritual master. Krishna leads us to the spiritual master, and the spiritual master takes us back to Krishna. This is a very wonderful relationship that we have. So if we start pleasing our spiritual master, Krishna is supremely he is pleased. And to those who are constantly devoted and who's worshipping with love, Krishna says he gives that understanding. So what happens at that point of time, when we have the sincere desire to serve Krishna, somewhere or the other, through one of our devotees, through our association, they say, oh, you can actually approach this particular spiritual master. And then when we start the process of chanting, we start chanting the holy name, and that is one of the things. So Kali Kale Namarupe Krishna Avatar. So when we start chanting, when we serve selflessly, without having any selfish motivation, whether we are grihasthas, whether we are brahmacharis, whether we are vanaprasthas, whether we are sannyasis, I think Krishna doesn't really bother about all these external designations. So when we chant the Harinam without any offense, when we try our best, then I think our life will be perfect. So thank you very much for once again for this wonderful opportunity. I must thank Lakshman Prabhu and all the devotees who are assembled here. So because you gave me this opportunity, I was completely in Krishna consciousness in the last so many days. So this is actually, they say the person who's actually giving the pravachan, he tends to gain the most, because he's constantly he's meditating about this service. So thank you very much once again, and my humble obeisances to all of you. And I hope that I have repeated the words of Srila Prabhupada, and I have not concocted anything from my own mind. So if there's something like that, please forgive me for that, and please pray for me also for my spiritual progress. Lakshman Prabhu has completely exaggerated my profile and biodata. And in fact, when my wife read this profile, she said, oh, it's actually an indication that you should do more devotional service, So I think it's actually a wake-up call for me to have a better engagement with Vaishnavas, with my spiritual master and Krishna. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a beautiful lecture and explaining to us how we can develop our relationship with Krishna and why it's so important with so many beautiful analogies. And yes, we'd also like to thank Lakshman Prabhu for bringing you here. Without him, we wouldn't get your association. So we're very grateful to Lakshman Prabhu and Amala Arjun Prabhu for giving your association today. Would also like to invite you for our next lectures.
Thank you very much. That will be very kind of you. Thank you so much.
So now we will move to the last part of the program, which is Aarti, and we're going to set up, and you can get darshan of our deities.
Jai, sure.